Hey, it's Monday and I'm Midja, and welcome to the podcast, Mondays with Midja. Now, season one, if you listen to season one, this was a podcast focusing on three things: life and love and leadership. And now we're starting season two, and this podcast is for women who want a career and a life that turns them on. So a little about that change to come, because I want to talk to you about, I guess, what has changed in me and my focus, and a little bit about how that relates to the podcast and what I want you to get from this podcast every Monday. So I know it's been a while between drinks. So season one of the podcast was recorded in 2022, so 4 years ago. So there's a lot to update you on. So I thought in this first little episode, what I'd do is get you up to date. So if you listen to season one, what's happened in the last 4 years? And if you're a new listener, it'll tell you a little bit more about who I am and what this podcast is about. So I'm a mum. I've got 3 kids. And 4 years ago, the kids were 11, 17, and 19. And now, if you do the maths, they are 15, 21, and 23. And it's been I think, a significant shift to now be in this phase of life with adult children. So children in their 20s. And also, I think, to have your youngest at 15, because particularly when he's number 3, hyper independent, this kid could kind of, and does, like, run his own show, do his own thing, get himself to school, get himself to the gym, get him to the beach to surf. So life changes. Absolutely. I think firstly, life changes when your kids get to school. So I certainly felt that when I had all 3 at school. That was kind of a milestone. And then as your children kind of get into that real independent stage where you kind of really get your time and your life back a lot. And you can kind of start thinking about, what do I want to do now? And how do I want to spend my time? So that's pretty cool. And it means that, like, weekends and the way that I kind of spend my time has changed. Okay. So that's a bit of an update on the kids. And my middle child, who is Sophie, my only daughter, she's 21, and she works full time in the business with me. So we are a mother-daughter team. And for those of you listening who are in business, or maybe even you work with a family member, it has its challenges, of course, and it has its upsides. So I'm sure over these episodes and the podcast, we'll talk more about that. We might even have some guests on where they work with family members as well. And certainly back when I was working in corporate, in the law firm that I was with for like 19, 20 years, we had, like mothers and daughters, or fathers and daughters, or like married couples, or sisters and brothers that worked in the firm. So it was always a really interesting dynamic, but it's super cool to be working with Sophie and to have her in the business. So what else? So 4 years ago, I was also running my leadership practice and growing that business. So I left partnership of the law firm that I was with, as I said, for a long time, 19 years. So I left that law firm in 2016. So at the time of the last podcast, I was 6 years out building that leadership practice. I'd written a few books. I had done a lot of keynote speaking, written and facilitated lots of leadership programs. And that was really my jam. That was what I was doing. And now what's changed is that I am pivoting and moving away from running leadership programs And I have started a new program, a new mentoring program called The Flex. And this program is for women who are starting their new chapter. Really for a woman who was like me when I left corporate work to set up my own leadership consultancy business. And it was a wild, wild ride to do that myself. So many lessons that I learnt along the way, and stumbles and mistakes and all that kind of stuff, which I think is really natural and normal. Pretty lonely, if I must admit that. So certainly when I was part of the firm, I always refer to the Cheers song. I'm showing my age here. I don't know if you know the Cheers, the sitcom or not, but the song to Cheers said that you want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. And when I was working for the law firm, that was me. Everyone knew my name, all, 1,000 people, everyone knew my name, and everyone was glad I came. And then when I left the firm to start on my own, oh boy, it was lonely. And it was a shock to no longer have people to bounce ideas off and collaborate with and to share a vision and to share goals with. It was a really challenging time. And so hence why I am now really focused in on the Flex as a program to give women clarity about what this next chapter actually means to you. Because I wasn't sure when I left corporate. I knew I wanted to do something different, but I wasn't quite sure what. I had what I nicknamed the niggle. So something inside of me that said, come on, Midge, you can do something more here. I was getting divorced at the same time. So those kind of things like coincided. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start this whole new chapter. And I want to build something for myself. So to give women clarity around what that next thing could be for them and how they can use all that experience and their genius in this next chapter to really give them conviction about this and to know that absolutely you can do this. Whatever you want to build, you can build for yourself. And finally, also to get momentum so that you actually take that first step and build on that first step and get the skills and the strategies and everything kind of needed in order for this next chapter in your life. So I'm so excited and passionate about that. So that's a huge change, and it's scary because I could just keep running a leadership practice because that's what I do. And I know how to do it, and I've done it now for 10 years. But again, I got this little niggle inside of me again going, okay, Midge, you've been there, done that. How about for this next decade, you do something different? You challenge yourself again. So what else? Let's think about in 4 years. So 4 years ago, I was, of course, rebuilding financially. And anyone listening here who has gone through a divorce at any stage, but I think certainly when you've gone through a divorce and you've accumulated wealth together and then you get into your early 40s and now like splitting that and really financially starting again is tough, particularly when you also make the decision to start a business at the same time. So I was renting a place on the Gold Coast and just like setting myself up financially, working hard to build something again for myself. And so now I'm in the beautiful position where I've bought this beautiful house at Runaway Bay around my friends. So the friendship group, everyone lives in 4216. That's the postcode. You're never allowed to leave the postcode. We laugh about, we're like, we're not traveling too far for drinks or champagne. You got to live in this postcode, people. And so it's so funny. But yeah, I've bought a place. It's home. And I've certainly made it home for myself and for the kids and for our new puppy, Loki, and for my partner. More on that soon. And I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of coming through those years after the divorce and coming through the other side. and being able to financially really kick some goals that were really important to me. Maybe not to everyone, but it was important to me to do this. So that feels pretty cool. And as I've mentioned, 4 years ago in season 1 of the podcast, it was about love as well. So life and love and leadership. And every guest on the podcast would give me dating advice because I was single. And I'd been single for sort of 6 years by then. And anyone who knows me will have heard me talk about the dating stories. And it gave me so much material when I would go out to events and stuff. People were like, Midge, what happened this week? What happened to such and such? And of course, everyone would have a name. So, there was the Latin lover, and then there was the captain, and then, like, everyone had a nickname. And so I would tell these stories and people would just like crack up laughing. And yeah, it was funny, absolutely. But there was also, of course, a huge part of me that I wanted to find love, and I wanted to be loved and to love someone and to partner with someone and to be in a team with someone again. So that was really important to me. And so now, like 4 years later, I am in a relationship. So we've been together, Rossi and I, about 2 or 3 years now, about 2.5 years. We met in the wild, which is quite unusual because I went on a lot of online dating, and it's worked for many of my friends. It did not work for me, but maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. Yeah, there's a lot to think about that time, but we did meet out in the wild. And actually, it was a friend of his that started talking to me. And I thought, yep, he's pretty cute. Then the friend went to the bathroom and to go and get a couple of drinks. And then Rossi came up. And he's like, I know you're talking to my mate, but I reckon you and I would be pretty good together. And so I took one look at him and I'm like, yeah, I think so. And Rossi's a dancer. And if you know me, I love to dance. So a man who can dance and be on the dance floor, that is really impressive to me. That is really important. So he could dance, beautiful eyes, beautiful long hair. It's kind of longer than mine. And I just thought, I reckon so. I reckon we'd be pretty good together. And so that's been just a wonderful couple of years to have someone by my side. And Rossi is very much an adventurer. It's very down to earth, very grounded. We have a camper trailer. We hike, we snorkel. We've got a 2-person kayak that we take out. So if you had asked me, and when I was kind of dating, like all the check boxes and what I was looking for and that kind of piece, I think it would be someone very different to who I actually ended up with. So again, there's probably a lot of lessons in that. And we might talk about some of that stuff during the season as well. So anything else? We've got the kids, the house. One thing I will say also is my friendship group and my friendship circle and my girlfriends. I have never enjoyed them more. Like, I'm just in this beautiful season, if you like, of having a really beautiful circle of women around me who are fierce. They are fierce. They are fun. They make me think. They challenge me. We just have the best time together. So I am really grateful for that. And some of those friends absolutely have been around 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, some of them. But in the last 4 years, also, some other women that have really come into my life and in a really meaningful way. So I am super grateful for that. So I guess you're up to date. There might be more stuff, or there's going to be lots more for us to share in this season of the podcast, and I can't wait for you to join me every Monday. And I am going to bring you some beautiful guests, women who are starting on their next chapter, whatever that kind of looks like for them. So they're doing something for themselves, what they're bringing into this next chapter of their life, why they're building something for themselves, why they're, deciding to go on this kind of next adventure. So really keen to bring you those stories and those insights, what has shifted for them, some of the challenges they're going to have around that, and also just to give us so many different examples and so many different stories of how we can, as women, create that career and create a life that just really turns you on. I'm so passionate about that, and I can't wait for you to be with me every Monday. So, as I always say, TGIM, thank God it's Monday. I'm Midja, and I'll see you next week. Bye.